We are in week number 2 of the series, Shh. Just kind of like doing that. And I want to start out by reading a story. It's about a guy named Bill, and he's actually on staff at a church in Alabama. It's called Church of the Highlands. And those of you guys that know Summer and Jeremy Kemper that used to live here, she's the gal that was diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer. It's one of their pastors. And it's a great story. So you guys hang with me, and I'm going to read it as he is telling this story about his life. He says, as a boy, I had many dreams. I was Elvis, Rocky, I was rich and famous. I was a great football player. Many of the kids that I grew up with, I had aspirations for greatness. I didn't have a clue what it all meant, what it would cost me, or what the interpretation would be, but I dreamed and dreamed and dreamed and dreamed. From Superman capes to slicked back, greasy hair, that sounds like Buck, and guitars. This guy dreamed to be like you, Buck. Yeah, you do, don't you? There wasn't anything that I didn't dream of becoming. Then came the dream killer. In my school days in the late 50s and early 60s, we had elementary school from 1st to 6th grade. After that came junior high, wild junior high, where you no longer had just one teacher, but changed rooms every hour to a new subject and a new teacher. You left on a bus early in the morning, went all the way across town, and didn't come home to the very end of the day. And this is where it all started to count. It was just a little bit scary for me, but it was reality. I was going to junior high. My grades were pretty good in elementary school. I was in advanced math and on occasion would run up to nearly making straight A's. Notice I said nearly. School really wasn't my thing, if I'm going to be honest. Homework was out of the question, and with 6 rambunctious kids, Mama couldn't keep up with all of us, so I just got by with a little bit of effort. I knew that 7th grade was coming, and I would really start trying once I got to Westdale Junior High. In the meantime, girls and football seemed to be enough to keep me busy back in the day. It was the end of my 6th grade, and my teacher, coach, was handing out report cards. It was my turn to get my final report card, get my final word of encouragement from my teacher, mentor, Coach Milligan, and wait for the summer to end so I could begin a new stage in my life. I remember approaching the teacher's desk. He looked at me with a stern face and said these unfortunate words to me. Hornsby, you're never going to make it. I thought, okay, what did he mean by that? It was like someone had tried to punch me in the nose, and I was trying to dodge the blow. Never make it? Oh, well, I went home, gave the report card to my mom, and told her, you know what Mr. Milligan said when he came home, when he gave me my report card? He said, Hornsby, you're never going to make it. Listen to what his mom says. Mama just brushed it off. Really? Oh, Billy, just forget about it, she said. And that was it. Just forget it. The problem was, I never forgot it. When I finally got to 7th grade, and for the next 12 years, I stopped dreaming. With every dream and with every failure came the words, you will never make it. I failed a test or missed a pass from the quarterback. I heard those words over and over and over again. These words would follow me into my marriage and every job failure, every day, every single year. You will never make it became a state of being for me. Subconsciously, it began to dictate my actions and my thoughts. I was on the road to a dreamless life of failure to nowhere, but dreams come true even with dream killers around. At age 24, I met Jesus Christ. For the first time, I understood that failure did not have to be the foundation I had to build my life on. With forgiveness, not only of moral failure, but every other miscue, God was giving me a brand new start and a chance to overcome my past. This all came to a head in an interview pertaining to a battery of tests that I took my employer at that time. It was a great turn of events into my life. Management trainee was the title of position that I held with a large drugstore chain. They had sent trainees from all over the state to take some tests being administered by an industrial psychologist. It was 2 days of hard test taking, round table negotiations, and a bunch of business transactions and a bunch of personnel type interviews and questions. When it was all over, we took our turns going into the room where we got our report card. It was my turn. This upbeat man in his early 40s looked at me and said, "Mr. Hornsby, you're not going to be with this company very long." I thought, yeah, what else is new? Then the thought came back to me, "You'll never make it." I answered him and I said, "That doesn't surprise me, but why are you saying that?" His answer changed my life, broke the chains, the words my sixth grade mentor had spoken over me. He said these words, "I've given this test to thousands of people around the country, and you've made the highest score of anyone that I've ever tested. The reason I said that you will not be with this company long is we don't have a good enough offer to make you." Then he said the words that changed my life for good. "I don't know what you will end up doing, but whatever it is, you will be successful." When the psychologist said those words, I knew the origin of those words. It wasn't just him talking, but somehow God was saying to me, the words of your sixth grade teacher will no longer have an effect upon your life. From this point on, you will not fail, but rather succeed. What an impact this interview had on my life. I remember getting up from the table, and before I left the building, I called my brother Frank. He said, "Frank, I want to tell you what just happened." I told him the story of the years of being under the power of negative dream-killing words and my teacher, and then just what had happened in the psychologist's office. "Frank, God has just reversed the curse." With that, my whole life changed. I started dreaming again. I love that story. Listen to this. Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. As far as I think, everyone in here has a tongue in their mouth. And what we've got to understand is the tongue contains power. It's like a stick of dynamite. You have the ability to speak into someone's life, and truly you can insert life in them and watch that explode in their life. Or you have the ability to speak death and to speak that into someone's life and watch that explode and destroy their lives. The tongue contains the power to love people. As small as the tongue is, it has the ability and the power to encourage people, and I promise you that your tongue has the ability to speak life and unleash someone's soul. Your tongue also has the ability to criticize other people, to criticize God's creation, His people, His sons and daughters. Your tongue has the ability to bring coldness to somebody else. It has the ability to be harsh with other people. But listen to this, Proverbs 18:4. I love this verse. It says, "A person's words can be life-giving water. Words of true wisdom are as refreshing as a babbling brook. Words have the power to heal. They have the power to give life. They have the ability to lovingly, in grace, confront. Your tongue has the ability and the power to awaken spiritually dead people. Your tongue has the ability to speak into the life of a kid and to propel them into the future to truly change the world. Or, parents, you have the ability to crush their spirit, just like happened to Billy Hornsby. Your tongue has the power to give your spouse freedom. And your tongue has the ability and the power to unleash, support, encourage church leadership. Proverbs 18:7. It says, the mouth of fools are their ruin. They trap themselves with their lips. Has anybody here ever trapped themselves with your lips? Raise your hand. Okay, if you're not raising your hand, you know what you are. I'm not going to say it because I'm taming my tongue. Words have the power to ruin a marriage. Honey, what do you do with your time all day long? Honey, you're controlling. Honey, why are you saying that? Honey, why do you treat the kids that way? Honey, are you going to keep struggling with this year after year after year? Words have the power to destroy children. When are you ever going to get it? You're lazy. You're not very smart. You're not going to amount to much. That's really not your sport. We have the ability to destroy our kids. And I believe that words have the power to ruin and destroy churches as well. I'm not going to follow that leadership. I don't like the music. I don't like the teaching. If they had a better kids ministry, last time I checked, church is not all about you, it's all about him. But you have the ability, those of us sitting in this room, to destroy this church with our tongue, small tongue, or to give life and power to what God's doing here. I believe, as I've studied on this topic this past month, as I go through and I read the Scripture, I believe that God is looking for a few people that will step up to the plate and will say, I will tame my tongue. I think God's looking for a few people that will stand up and they will say, I will speak life. He's looking for somebody to stand up and say, I will honor other people. He's looking for somebody to stand up and say, I will not gossip. I will speak life, and I will speak truth. God's looking for some people that will honor him and will tame their tongue and begin to speak life into other people. So what does Jesus think about the tongue? I love this verse. Super powerful. Matthew 12:34. Listen. He says, you offspring of vipers. Talk about piling your words. He was pretty hacked. How can you speak good things when you are evil or wicked? For out of the fullness, the overflow, the superabundance of the heart, the mouth will speak. Your mouth is going to reveal your true spiritual condition. I don't care what kind of front, what kind of pose you put on, but your mouth is truly, every time you open it, is going to reveal where you are sitting spiritually. Every single time. Great story. Years and years ago, we used to live in a cabin that no longer exists back in the back by Rob and Jill's place. And we had like one room with a closet, and Cole was just born, and we put Cole in this closet. And some of you guys remember that, and there was like this window into our room, and every time Cole wanted to wake up, he would just take one of those bottles that had those super pulley nipples on them, and he would just hurl it through that window at us, and it would smack us and wake us up. There was one time that we woke up, and it was just really quiet, and we couldn't figure what's going on. He's usually screaming and talking like he hasn't stopped talking since then. And so we went in there, and Cole had, just bear with me on this, one of those massive poo blowouts that babies have, okay? And it had worked its way up its back, you know the kind I'm talking about, into his hair, and it was in his hands, and he was just chowing down on it. There's a purpose to this story, okay? He still does that, by the way. I'm just kidding. He doesn't. So listen, why is that story nasty? Poo contaminates us. And there's some of you here, and you're eating poo. And it's contaminating your heart. You can ooh and ah at Cole all day long, but you're doing the same thing every single day. What makes yours more tolerable than his? The stuff that we're ingesting, the things that we're taking inside of us are contaminating our heart. And Scripture says if you desire to muzzle your mouth, if you really desire to get a hold of your tongue, then control what you marinate in. Begin to control it. If you want to begin to speak the things of God, begin marinating in the things of God. You can't marinate in the poo and speak things of God. It does not work. Every time you open your mouth, everyone around you really knows where you're sitting and standing spiritually. There's a connection here that doesn't lie. How do you do that? How do you begin to control your intake, what you're taking in? And it's interesting. You see it all over the place. If you hang around with sour people, your heart begins to sour. You hang around with critical, spirited people, and you allow them to deposit that in you, your heart becomes critical. You have a heavy diet of pornography, you're going to have an addicted heart. Statistics tell us that 1 out of 2 every guy in here struggles with that. Guys, if you hang around with a bunch of guys that dishonor their wives and speak poorly of them, you're going to find out that you have a dishonoring heart. Ladies, if you do the same and nip, yick, with other ladies about your husband, you're going to find that you have a critical, sour heart toward your mate. If you're here and you're spiritually lazy, you don't marinate in the things of Jesus, you're going to find out that your heart is spiritually dull. You're not acute and sensitive to the Spirit of God. I love this. Proverbs 4:23 says, guard your heart above all else. He says, listen. He says, above everything else, guard your heart, for it determines the course of your life. So how do you guard your heart? A few ideas. Some of you guys are hanging around with sour friends, and you need to confront that behavior in love. There's some of you guys, the way that you can guard your heart is end a friendship. I think it's appropriate to set boundaries at times and end friendships. Some of you guys need to initiate a friendship. A friendship with someone that is spiritually minded, connected with Jesus, and will speak life into you. Some of you guys to guard your heart, and this is going to sound outrageous. I've asked people to do this before. You need to throw your computer out. But I can't. Yeah, but you can't. You can't manage it. You've shown that. Some of you here have been saying, I'm going to make it to that men's Bible study at 6 o'clock in the morning. But you just can't seem to do it. Maybe that's what you need to do. I have got like a real problem with my tongue. Okay? And it specifically comes out when my oldest son is playing basketball. Okay? And I don't know what comes over me, but I become this monster. Okay? It's just unacceptable. I would embarrass every single one of you. And I sit there on the front row and I scream and I berate the referees because they're not calling a good game, right? And I can like say, okay, I'm going to go sit up in the top, and you can still hear me like I was sitting on the front. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so it has even gotten to the point to where my family has said, we're not going to walk into this gym with you. You walk in by yourself and you sit in another place, all by yourself. You don't belong with us any longer. They're over there shaking their head. And so I vow, as Cole has AAU tryouts today, that that's going to end. Those days are over. Because I was reading Colossians 3:8, and it says, but now is the time. Not tomorrow, but now is the time to get rid of anger, rage, malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. This is a nice way of saying, now it's time to shut up. Now it's time just to shut your mouth. King David, in Psalms 141:3, says, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Okay? I love this story because Absalom was trying to kill David. Absalom was in the wrong. King David was in the right. King David wanted to stand up. He wanted to throw him under the bus. He wanted to tell him to what for. He wanted to bring him down. But look at his prayer. He said, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Some of you guys, like me, you need to just shut your mouth. Good old-fashioned discipline. It's time to be quiet. And as I read this, it's really interesting, is because he says, keep watch over the door of my mouth. And what you can see King David here doing is he's bringing this issue to his father. He's saying, listen, this is a real issue in my life for me. Yeah, we can laugh and have fun with it and all, but this is an issue. And he comes before his father, and there's some of you guys that do have an issue of taming the tongue. And you've tried and you struggle, no matter if it's gossip or not speaking life and always speaking death or being critical or always complaining. Whatever it is for you in taming the tongue, it may be time for you to surrender the keys of your mouth to your Father. And to fight this battle on your knees instead of with your tongue. Because there's some of us here that we need the supernatural intervention of a holy God to help us with this. Or it may be some of you guys, I love this, to invoke what I call the quiet game clause. How many of you guys remember the quiet game? Yep, a few of you. Wikipedia describes the quiet game like this. The quiet game is a children's game. It needs to be an adult's game, where children must stay quiet and still. The last child or team to make a noise wins the game. I remember this. Me and my brother would always play this. You know, we'd be sitting in the back of the Country Squire wood-paneled station wagon like Chevy Chase drives in Christmas Vacation. It was cool. We had one of those. And we didn't have to sit in seat belts. We would fight from the back to the front and throw each other around. But we'd always play the quiet game. And I would always lose. Every time. He was an introvert. I was an extrovert. I could never play the quiet game. And there's some of you guys here, and today, as an adult, you always lose the quiet game. Because you have to talk. You have to get the last word in. You've got to be the one to win and to say it. But it may be time for you to step into the pain and invoke the quiet game clause. Remember, the game for adults. 1 Peter 2:23. Listen to this. Talking about Jesus. It says, when he was reviled and insulted, he did not revile or offer insult in return. How big is that? When he was abused and he suffered, he made no threats of vengeance, but he trusted himself and everything to him who judges fairly. Bam! That is unbelievable. Jesus was insulted, falsely accused to the point of death. And what did he do? He walked in silence. It's hard to do. When you've been gossiped about, what is your natural tendency? To defend yourself. When your wife speaks death to you. Some of you guys are fumers. You just take that inside and you're quiet. But some of you are spewers. And you spew it everywhere. When you come in contact with someone who's got a critical spirit. When you're cussed out. Or when your spouse is wrong. We so often want to defend ourselves and we talk about other people. And at times it is appropriate to defend in a godly, humble, grace-giving way. But there's some of you here and you know who you are, and it is time for you to just walk in silence. The tongue can be such a difficult thing to control. But I want to encourage you guys as you leave. Not only do we need to tame our tongue, but we have the power to give people wings and to speak life into their soul. Husbands, you have the ability to speak life and freedom into your wives. Ladies, You have the ability to not nag and not tear down, but to speak deep into his heart and soul and to free him up to be the man that God has called him to be. Parents, we have the ability to crush our kids' spirit. Or we have the ability to speak life. And as I said, give them wings and send them on to the future. We have the ability to speak life into friends, into church leadership, into people at work. I pray that we would be convicted about this and we would be the kind of people that would want to honor God with our tongues and realize the power that he's given us and not just harness and control our tongue, but unleash it to give life to others. And that's all I got to say about that. Let's pray.